Okay, so we're going to get started here. I'm going to share my screen. And for anybody watching this after it's been recorded, welcome. And we're going to be talking about a few of the communication tools available in Blackboard that you can use as an instructor to communicate with your students. Um, The first one I'm going to talk about is probably the easiest one, and it is the contacts feature. Um, in your course, it might be listed as instructor contact. If you go down to your control panel, you'll find it under course tools, and it's listed as contacts. And it's pretty straightforward. We're talking about a way to put up your information as an instructor uh, uh, so your students have a quick and easy place to go. Find your email, your phone number, your office location and hours, etc. When you create your contacts, you're presented with a series of fields. And if you've been using Blackboard, a lot of these features are very similar to one another. It's usually fields to be filled in. In this case, no different. Putting in your name is pretty important. But the most important and required field when you're creating contact is your email. If you don't put anything else in, you have to put in an email address. Um, so you just fill in your profile information. So in this case, we'll put in my information. And if you have an office phone or something like that the students can use, you can put that information in. If you have a location on campus, or if you work remotely, you can put that information in the office location. And these fields are separate just for ease of editing for you in the long run. Um, if your office location changes or your hours change, you can always go in and quickly edit that one field without editing everything else. The notes field at the bottom is really for anything you want to put in. If you have a Zoom room that you want to share with your students, you could put the Zoom link there. If you have a website that you'd like to share, etc., anything like that. Most of these features pretty easy to use. If you've been using Blackboard, you're probably already used to using the editing tools. If not, it's a bit like using Microsoft Word. You have a small series of tools you can use to edit text, to bold or italics, etc., copy and paste, inserting web links, and anything like that. Pretty straightforward, create contact. Once you are finished entering your information, you click the submit button and a new contact is created. Also, once you create your contact, you want to make sure you make it available to your students. To do so, you just click the drop-down chevron next to the contact you've just created, hit edits, and there is a option to make your profile available. And now it is available. As you see, I created one earlier, already all filled in with my information. I'm located off campus, but I did put a note in that students could reach me in my Zoom room during my office hours. That's contacts. You can create multiple contacts. As you can see, I've already done so. If there are multiple faculty running the same course, all of you could put your information in there, or if you have teaching assistants, they can put their information in there as well. You can create folders as a way to separate multiple contact informations. If you have multiple people instructing the course, but say, for instance, you have multiple teaching assistants who handle different sections of your course, you could create separate folders for each teaching assistant, and they could have their own area to put their own information. But that is the contacts area. Next, I'm going to move on to the announcements area, which is probably one of the most important features in Blackboard as far as communication goes. When you create an announcement inside your course, it posts it directly to the entry area for the students. So as soon as they enter the course in Blackboard, they'll see the announcements. And your announcements will stay there in the announcements area as long as you want them to. Also, you can use the announcements to send a mass email to all the users in your course, which is very, very handy for last-minute information. If your course had to be rescheduled or canceled for some reason, or if there's going to be a pop quiz and you want to inform the students that they need to be in class, that kind of thing. Once again, you should have an announcements link already prepared in your course shell. But if you don't, you can go down to the course tools area, and announcements is the second choice. To create an announcement, you just click the create announcement button. Every announcement needs to have a subject, just like an email. You want to give it a short, brief subject line. You don't need to put a whole lot of detail in here. The body of your message will contain all that information. And part of this is because when the announcement is created as an email, it'll use the subject you put here as the subject line for the email message. So if class has been canceled for the day, we can use that as our subject line, and then our body of our message can contain as much information as we want to put in there. Say we're having a bad snowstorm in New Hampshire. That's unheard of, but I also want to make sure all my students do their homework assignments for the next coming weeks, so I will inform them to do that as well. Once you finish with the body of your message, you have a couple of options down the page. The duration, if you do not put a date restriction on your message, it will go out, it will appear on your course site, and it'll stay there indefinitely until you go in and actually remove it. You can use date restriction to automate your announcement. You can set a date for it to appear, so you could create your announcements ahead of time, have them date restricted, and if you have a display after date set, it'll automatically make itself appear and send out a message to all your students. And also, you can set a display until. So if you have a message that you only want to stick around for a week or 2 weeks or even 2 days, you can set that date in the display until, and the announcement will stay around until that date, at which point it will make itself unavailable. You as an instructor will always see it unless you go and actually delete it, but the students will not see it. It'll be unavailable to them. So my message is going out. I only need it to stay around for a week, so I'm going to set my date out for 1 week. And I'm also checking off email the announcement. So this is where I'm talking about sending the announcement out as an email message to all my users or my students. If you leave this unchecked, it will only appear in your course. No one will receive it as an email. By checking it off, all students who have a email associated with their account will get a copy of this in their email. You can also include a link to a location in the course if your announcement has to do with a test that you want to make sure the students remember to take. You could link to the test using this button. So I click the browse button, and here's the test I want my students to take. I'll click that, and this will appear as a link in the email, in the announcement. When the students click on it, it'll take them directly to the test. Once I finish setting all my parameters and my message information, I'm going to submit it. And in my announcements area now, we see the announcement, class has been canceled. Here's the course link that'll take me directly to the test I want the students to take. All the information I wanted is there. And if I checked my, if a student checks their email, they'll have a copy of this in their email as well. I have a copy. I have a student account set up in this course already. Here is my message I just received from my instructor. Class has been canceled due to a bad snowstorm. Class is canceled. Please do all work on module 3. Well, I thought I was going to get away with it. An important thing to note when you get email messages from an instructor or a student using Blackboard is these messages cannot be replied to. If a student wishes to reply to you, they'll have to enter your email address by hand. By hitting reply, they'll be sending to a do not reply address. So if you want your students to be able to reply to your messages, it's a good idea to put a note in your message that they should enter your email address manually. And we'll jump back to Blackboard. Oh, all right. That's the announcements feature. It's pretty easy to use, and it's a quick way to throw out quick information. Now, a tool that expands announcements out even further is the email tool. If you go to your course tools section of your control panel, most of the way down, there is a tool called Send Email. A lot of the features of Send Email is very similar to the things we just did with the announcements tool. But this isn't an announcement, this is just creates an email. This is a really handy tool for sending out messages to all of your students, some of your students, or if if you have students broken into different work groups, you can break your students up into groups and send them email message to the different groups individually. If you're working with TAs or other special users, you can also use this to communicate with them. It is not a true form of email. It creates a message. Again, it cannot be replied to directly. So it's always something to keep in mind, but it is a quick and easy way to contact all your students without having to hand copy all their email addresses into your personal email. So there you have a bunch of different options with the Send Email tool. The most easiest one to use is the all users. When I click all users, I'll be presented with the screen to create my email message. The to field is pre-filled with my information. or I'm sorry, with the student's information as well as mine. You always get a copy of the email you send out. This is my faculty account here, and here is my student's account. I only have one student enrolled in this course, but if I had more, they'd all be listed here. The message is from my faculty account, which is right there. And again, I just create a subject, use much like I'd be writing a regular email. Um, uh, put your simple subject line in there, and then you can expand further the message by adding more to the body. Again, using the tools here to edit, to give it a nice appearance. You can bold and create different styles of paragraphs, etc. Once you finish creating your message, you have a couple of options below. You can check this box off to get a return receipt. And you can also add attachments to the message, which is very handy if you have, say, a last minute addition to an assignment that the students are going to be working on, and you want to make sure they have the correct documentation. You can attach the file directly to the message, and it'll include it when it creates the email. Once you finish, you click submit. You'll get a green bar at the top of your screen that informs you the message was sent. And again, if I go to my student's email mailbox, here's the message that I just sent out. Again, you'll see that it comes from a do not reply address. So if my students wanted to reply to me, they'd have to enter my email address manually. So that's all users. If you don't wish to send to all users all at once, there are different ways you can send to select users. All groups sends an email message to each group you've created in your course, and we'll talk about groups in another webinar. But in your Blackboard course, you can take your students and break them up into different groups, which is a very handy tool if you have a course where you need large groups to work together, but not necessarily the entire class. Probably the most commonly used button in this tool is the all users, but after that, the /select users is super handy. Here, it's exactly the same, except you can select which users you want to send your email message to. And you could handpick which ones you'll send. I only have a couple of people enrolled in my course, but I could send to a specific person by selecting their name, clicking the arrow button to send their name to the selected box. Or you could always say select all and send them all over. Once you've selected your users, everything else is the same. Create your subject, your message, whether you want an attachment or not, submit your message. That is really it, other than you can send messages just to people who are designated as teaching assistants, or if there are multiple instructors in your course, you could send a message just directly to them, or you could just use the select users tool and select them by hand. They're all just quick, easy ways to put together your list of people you want to address in the email. No copies of the email are kept locally in Blackboard. Once you use the tool to send a message, the message is gone, other than the copy you get to your email account. So if you want to be able to keep a copy of any message sent out, you might want to use the announcements tool instead, which sends to all the users in your course, but it keeps a copy in your announcements area. That is really it. Those are three very simple ways to communicate with the users in your course. If you have any questions, you can always email me at rhawk@nec.edu. And I have Tatiana in here, and I think she has some questions.
I was curious, what is the communication options for students?
That is a great question. So students do not have access to most of these tools. These are primarily for the instructor. If they want to communicate with their instructor, the best thing for them to do is to use their student email to send an email. These tools are primarily for the instructor or other or teaching assistants, anybody who is designated as some sort of instructor for the course to communicate with the users who are taking the course.
Would students send an email through the course, or would they want to be out of the course to send an email?
They would have to be in their own personal, their own email, so not in the course, no.
Not in the course. Huh, okay.
That said, there are other ways to communicate in Blackboard, such as the discussion board. There are different ways of communicating, but the discussion board doesn't necessarily send email. But if they want to do a thing like email, they'll have to use their own email account.
So it sounds like it's important to keep track of the emails that you send out, because they're not going to be kept in Blackboard.
That's correct, yeah.
All right, that was very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm going to stop our recording, but before I do, I'll just remind everybody that we are trying to give Blackboard webinars every week this summer. If you need help, you can always contact myself or one of the other people in the online department. Thank you for joining us today.